Thanks for joining East Coast Sailing. I'm Rob and I'm about to take you on one of my biggest sailing adventures ever. I'll be sailing from my home port of Woolverstone and travelling 1,000 nautical miles solo. I'll be exchanging the brown seas of the Essex coastline for the tropical blue waters of the Isles of Scilly. Today's episode covers the first leg of the journey between Woolverstone and Ramsgate. The journey would start on the 14th of June 2025 and would last for 3 weeks. But rest assured, the first leg of the journey was the roughest. The inception of this journey started in winter through meticulous planning and many upgrades on Evania. The Isles of Scilly is an archipelago located 23 miles off the southwest coast of the UK, and this cluster of islands doesn't give up her secrets easily. Many of the subscribers who follow this journey in real time shared their tales of how they attempted to get to the Isles of Scilly and ultimately failed. I only have one chance to get to my destination as I work full time and failure isn't an option. I'll share all the hidden gems I uncovered as I sail into uncharted territory as I head west, and sharing these memories with my family with a surprise visit. I tackle the steep and unrelenting overfalls of Portland Bill, and my favourite subject, food, and sharing the culinary delights along the way. This journey wouldn't have been possible without my official marina partner MDL, and I'll be showcasing some of their marinas around the UK en route. I endured the most severe electrical storms as well as the perfect sailing conditions. It's a tale of grit, determination and ultimately success, riding the bow waves and never feeling more alive. In a world where every aspect of our life is controlled, the only person who controls this journey is Mother Nature, and the dogged determination of an incredibly average sailor. Climb aboard my trusty vessel Evania, a Beneteau Oceanis 343. Together we'll tour the south coast of the UK and uncover some of Britain's best preserved heritage, and discovering the UK's version of the French Riviera. I'll share my perilous encounter when my propeller got fouled and I lost the engine drifting onto rocks as I entered the Isles of Scilly. Most sailors will be able to relate to this, but we question why do we do it to ourselves, the early starts, the copious amounts of money that goes into maintaining a boat, but these priceless encounters with nature always makes it worthwhile. When the months of planning and preparation finally come together and the anxious feeling washes away as you sink your feet on the shoreline. And if you're left wondering, is all the effort worthwhile? Absolutely. Hopefully that introduction has got you hooked to East Coast Sailing, and if that isn't enough of an incentive to come and join the channel, I'm giving away loads of goodies over the next coming episodes. I'll be giving away the East Coast Sailing sunglasses, and all you have to do for your chance to be in to win is subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment on the video, and the best comment will win, and share the video, and I'll announce the winner in the next episode. And if you can't wait that long, all you have to do is go on www.eastcoastsailing.co.uk and I'll post them out pronto. So let's get back on with the episode. Hi guys, it's Rob from East Coast Sailing. Today I'm heading towards the Isles of Scilly, and I've just started my longest journey ever. The voyage will start at my home port of Woolverstone Marina before we head to Ramsgate. We'll go round to Sovereign Harbour located in Eastbourne before heading into Ryde on the Isle of Wight to do a little bit of maintenance. I'll head west to Portland Bill where I meet the UK's favourite bumbling sailor before passing on to Queen Anne's Battery. Finally, I'll head to Falmouth before we take the leap of faith and end up in the Isles of Scilly in Hughtown. The outward journey consisted of 500 nautical miles and I did this in 5 days. Today's leg starts near the Orwell Bridge in Ipswich. I'll be leaving my home port of Woolverstone Marina, which is ran by MDL. we'll head down the River Orwell and past the busy port of Felixstowe and in between Harwich. We'll enter into the North Sea and start the 52 nautical mile journey passing the London Array wind farm. We'll cross the busy shipping lanes of the Thames estuary, before finally arriving at the beautiful Kentish coastline where wind speeds picked up to 30 knots. Finally, we'll head into Ramsgate, which will conclude the first leg of the journey. Departure day had finally arrived. After lots of sleepless nights leading up to it, I would be missing another Father's Day. Saying your goodbyes is never easy, especially when you have a young family. And despite the smiles on camera, loneliness is always the most difficult thing to deal with when solo sailing. I waved goodbye and jumped on board Evania to put away all the clothing and provisions in preparation for the journey. Most normal people would be getting their head down for an early night, but not me. I wanted to go and witness firsthand what it was like to be in one of the most severe electrical storms. The lightning strikes went off like gunfire. Could this be an omen of the success of the trip? Wow, what a beautiful morning and a great start compared to the night before. I untied Evania's shackles which held her to the dock. I'd waited a whole year to undertake this journey, and Judgment Day had finally arrived. I pulled out the berth for a seamless departure with a spring in my step, for I had 3 weeks off. No more long commutes to London, no more alarm clocks, just me, the sea and survival. I bowed my head towards the Orwell Bridge as a sign of respect, wondering when I'd actually be back. Sometimes you don't realise what you have until it's gone. It was time to blow the cobwebs off, having spent most of the winter in port. I hoisted the mainsail before we entered into the lawless North Sea. It doesn't matter how many times you leave and sail offshore, I always get a pitted feeling in my stomach. We had now reached the point of no return as the land started to slip away beyond the horizon. Right, we've got 20 knots forecasted, constant winds, and we're going to have gusts going up to 34 later on, so it's going to be a little bit lively as soon as we get into the Thames estuary. That kicks in at about 10 o'clock and it's 8 o'clock now. Just use the tide nicely to take us out of the River Orwell, and it's going to be low tide in about 20 minutes, so I couldn't have timed that any better. I'm going to get myself nice and warm because the last thing you want to be doing is changing and getting cold when you're out there because you lose the feeling in your hands. I might even double reef the main because it's going to be pretty blowy and it's going to be on the nose all the way, so it's going to be choppy out there. The Thames estuary just blows up like that. It's a pretty amazing place, but very unforgiving out there, lots of shipping traffic. I slipped into my nautical armour, riding my white horse into battle. I had seriously underestimated the conditions I was about to face. I turned my AIS transponder on so I would be visible to all the ships that would cross over on the busy shipping lane. I get a lot of comments about my choice in sailing footwear, but trust me, these things are like slippers. I put my life jacket on and clipped the radio, and the last item to complete the outfit was the East Coast sailing shades. It wasn't far into the journey before we had our first breakage, which was the USB charger, which is critical for charging my phone, which I use as a backup chart plotter. Trying to do intricate wiring while being in a G-force machine, the joys of sailing. We were now pulling away offshore and we started to work our way through all the shallow sandbanks and wind farms. Now it's a bit of a rocky start to the journey because last night we had yellow Met weather thunderstorm warnings. The thunderstorm bolts were just striking down on the water, on the hill, and one even struck a ship, and I'll show you some of those images. It was just incredible. They were getting a little bit close for comfort. They seemed to be out very far in front of us, and then suddenly we found ourselves surrounded in the middle of the lightning storm, which was just unreal. I've never seen anything like it. There's not a lot of wind, but it is forecasted to jump up to 20 knots constant by about 10 o'clock, and we've got gusts of 34 kicking in by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's not going to be particularly nice, and that wind is going to be bang on the nose. So it's going to be a bit slow, a bit uncomfortable, but the closer we get to land, the fetch is going to die down, so those waves are going to die down and it'll be much more comfortable. Now I was planning to go all the way to Eastbourne in one hit, but because the high winds, I think I'll just be knackered, and the thunderstorms last night, I think I'm going to get a rest. The winds are lightening up, and then I'm just going to make some absolute miles over the coming days. I was debating whether to take a shortcut through the wind farms. The time saving was negligible, but it always makes the journey a little bit more interesting. I was now sailing through the London Array wind farm, which is located 20 miles away from Ramsgate. With strong tides and sandbanks and dangerous wrecks, you have to be really on the ball when you're navigating around here. You could see the workboat was coming closer to take a little look at what I was doing. Considering Met weather has been saying there was going to be 34 knot gusts, it's been very still out here, so it's a bit unusual. I think I've got let off lightly, but I'm just going through one of the major wind farms that's having a little bit of work. You can see one of the lifting boats just up there operating on one of the substations. A workboat come out and checked me out just to make sure I wasn't doing anything untoward. They probably saw all this camera equipment and thought, what wizardry is he up to in the middle of here? I'm sure they don't get too many visitors out here. We're quite far off land, probably 20 miles now from Ramsgate. Just ticking along. I've got the engine on slightly with the sails both up. Nice East Coast sailing hat though, keeping the sun off my head. Make sure you go and check out the website. Thankfully, I'd navigated through the cut-through through all the obstructions of sandbanks just in time before the wind started to really kick up. I was really hopeful the forecast was going to be wrong and we're going to have these mild conditions, but Evania and I were going to have a pasting for the next 4 hours. Evania was flying along at 6 knots over ground, smashing into the waves head on. I'm trying to film, navigate, communicate and keep myself hydrated, so you can imagine how difficult it is going solo sailing. The only solace I had was every mile that I knocked down was one closer to the shoreline. The fetch would eventually die down and the waves would ease, making the conditions much more enjoyable. With all the action going on above deck, I completely forgot that I hadn't even reefed the main and we had a full sail out, which turned Evania partially into a submarine as the port windows were fully submerged. This area of sailing ground is notoriously rough as you have strong tidal convergences around North Foreland. There's also shallow sandbanks near the Margate Sands and hundreds of dangerous wrecks which plagues this area. Thankfully, the landmass came into view and I could see the towering lighthouse of North Foreland and the golden beaches of Margate. The winds had now backed down to a sensible 22 knots, which was much more comfortable. As we had left the muddy Essex coastline, you could see the discernible coloration change to an emerald green. I always arrive past North Forelands in late afternoon and the vibrant sands are always shining directly under sunlight. We cruise past the spectacular white chalky cliffs of Josh Bay, sitting at the foot of the North Foreland lighthouse. The origins of this landmark date back to 1499, where the area was first lit by fire. It wasn't until 1691 the octagonal tower was built out of brick and flint, and the lighthouse used to consume 100 tons of coal per year. Who needs to get on a plane when you have beaches as beautiful as this in the UK? Thankfully, today's leg was nearly over and I could see the welcoming arms of Ramsgate Harbour. The resident pilot boat that's located at Ramsgate was zipping in and out delivering captains to go up to the Thames estuary. The wind has started to increase, hitting 24 knots, so I knew this was going to be a rough landing, especially for a solo sailor.
Ramsgate port control, sailing vessel Evania approaching on the eastern entrance, permission to enter over.
Evania, control, yes sir, permission to enter, that's inside channel 80 for berth instructions.
Many thanks, Evania, standing by.
With the sails neatly packed away, I waited until I was in the protection of the harbour to put all the fenders and get the lines ready, because it can get pretty rough outside the entrance. With the first leg of the journey successfully completed, all I needed was a smooth landing. I managed to sail 52 nautical miles in 8 hours, which gave me a respectable average speed of 6.5 knots over ground. I could see the iconic red brick arches that house lots of good restaurants and nice places to go and have a drink. I was a line's throw from a cold pint. Once I was safely past the rocky groins of Ramsgate, I began tying on all the fenders with a reduced engine speed. I tied most of the fenders on the starboard side and prepared the lines also for this side. Ramsgate is accessible all states of the tide if you have a normal draft up to 1.8 metres. Before you enter Ramsgate Harbour, you must contact Ramsgate Port Control on VHF Channel 14. If you do arrive at low water, the deepest part of the channel is on the port side wall. Before I enter into the pleasure vessel area of the marina, I always do a circling lap, making sure I have a good look out to see what potential bays are free. I could see a nice double bay that was free that would be perfect to drift onto. I was going to head up as close as I could to the harbour wall because you can get some really uncomfortable swells, particularly on an incoming tide. I was maintaining a clear lookout, making sure no vessels were about to manoeuvre into my path. You would be amazed at the amount of people that start a manoeuvre without doing a good lookout. Don't be tempted to take the first available mooring opposite the mouth of the entrance because you will be rocking around all night and you won't have a lot of sleep, just like this boat on the right. The large beamy motor vessel parked on the port side was making the approach slightly difficult. Speed and throttle control are paramount in these kind of winds. If you don't carry enough speed, the nose won't respond and turn into the wind, and if you carry too much speed you won't be able to slow down and you'll hit the pontoon. We were now facing directly into the wind with wind speeds recorded at 25 knots. Holding a steady course and a steady speed, I knew this was going to be a textbook landing. But you just never know, there could be a really small tender boat parked in the bay which will ruin the approach. Luckily both bays were free, but I did notice an obstruction which was a metal piled pontoon post. I began turning but not too quick because there was a strong wind on the port side. I decided to stop woefully short and drift onto the pontoon for a nice smooth landing. Unfortunately I don't have a bow thruster on this boat, but I think it would make life much easier. I got the bow far enough in where I could let the wind do the rest of the work and blow us nicely over to the starboard side. As Evania's bow kissed the dock, I jumped off with both lines in my hand and made off to one of the cleats. Sheltered from the strong winds and the waves, we were safely tied on to our new home for the night. Okay, so I was missing a few details about that landing because the cameras weren't rolling. I'm going to come clean. So I was making off one of the ropes on the front of the boat, thinking that the wind would just pin the boat onto the pontoon. As I was leaning onto the boat, it started pushing away from the pontoon and I actually fell into the water. I reached out and managed to grab onto the metal stanchion on the bottom rung and then shimmied across over to the pontoon ladder and managed to climb out with just a wet bum, so I wasn't fully submerged. Just when you think things couldn't get any worse, I was then filling up diesel in the back of the boat using some jerry cans, and just when I'd finished, I put the fuel cap on and then the spout decided to fall off and then land in the water. Luckily the spout floated, but I didn't have any spares on board and I had a number of jerry cans requiring that spout. So I decided to then go and chuck the kayak in holding the lanyard rope and the string snapped. So I've now got the petrol spout floating away as well as the kayak, and I quickly rummaged into one of the lockers, got the oars out and then ran round the other side. So everyone must have been thinking, who is this lunatic who's completely incompetent? Now luckily the kayak hit the other side of the pontoon and I managed to retrieve it. I jumped back in the kayak, paddled over to the diesel spout, and then I kayaked over to the back of my boat, and the next thing I hear is this strong northern accent going, "Are you the East Coast sailor?" And I wanted to crawl up in a ball and die. I was so embarrassed. So when you think things happen to you, they happen to everyone, and just because the videos look a bit polished, I'm completely normal like the rest of you. Luckily, one of my loyal subscribers left a box of goodies on board Evania ready for the voyage. Thank you, Ian, and that drink was well needed. I got myself freshened up and took a walk into Ramsgate and stopped off at the Old Sailors' Church, which has always kept me safe on every journey. As I entered into the church, a true miracle was performed and my favourite person appeared before my very eyes. Luckily, I wasn't going to be spending Father's Day alone for the second year in a row. With my wife and scooter man going up the red brick arches, we headed to the Italian for a really nice meal overlooking the marina. I was grateful I had company for dinner, and after a beautifully cooked meal we headed back to the boat to get an early night before having a beach day the next day at Josh Bay. And if you want to get your hands on some of the East Coast Sailing merch, head over to the East Coast Sailing store and click on any of the items. Just remember, 5% of the profits will go to the RNLI to keep our sailors safe, and the rest will go back into the channel to pay for camera equipment. Only one thank you today, and that is to Chris Cole for the purchase of the East Coast Sailing sunglasses, so one ring on the bell. And just remember, there's loads of clothing on the East Coast Sailing store, so see you next time. Thanks for watching East Coast Sailing, and if you've enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to get the latest episodes. Come and join me on the next episode as I travel from Ramsgate to Eastbourne for the second leg of the journey.